somebody sings, if you're happy, the happy song.
Oh no, that was
happy.
McFerrin,
Yeah.
Bobby McFerrin.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Be happy.
Those songs like that, man,
Yeah.
are just inspiring, especially at a time now when things look kind of dreary, and we have murders every night in the city, and COVID is running rampant, which we're finally probably getting a cap on it now. That's good news.
We get, and a lot of people don't know. Shelby County actually lifted their mask mandate.
I saw that. Yes.
I wonder how that really plays out because the city of Memphis hadn't lifted theirs.
Right.
So the county as a whole lifted theirs, but you still got the city mandate, I guess. Maybe I'm wrong. So the topic we're going to talk about is it's businesses and then business insurance.
All right. That's
so
good.
That's the kind of what the questions and the topic. So the first question came out, Jerome. It says that what is the purpose for a business to be insured? Well,
is the caller serious?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like a benign question, or some questions don't make no sense. But actually, I understand the caller's position.
Darrell, it's paramount.
Yeah.
If you have anything that you have that's of value, you want to make sure that it perseveres. Mm-hmm. And there's so many things that can go wrong in a business, and insurance kind of backs you up when you get to a situation like that. In fact, my entire phone system went out. The lightning came in on it, and just blew it out. Mm-hmm. And I would have been complete out of business without insurance. And so, yes, there is a purpose for insurance, the same way it is for having insurance on your car. Do you think so?
Well, but how many people play Russian roulette with their car?
That's true.
You said the same reason why people have insurance.
And that's why we got uninsured motorist protection too.
Right. But they don't have that for a business, Jerome.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, so if you don't have insurance on your business and something goes awry, what's the next, venue that they can come out?
Well, let's start from the beginning. It's always best to start from the beginning. First of all, you can't have anything until your business starts to generate some funds.
Exactly.
Okay, so I can understand how you would piecemeal a thing, so maybe you would not come in initially with an insurance policy that will cover the entire package of your business, but at least those things that are paramount for your business, you should have a backup for those there.
So it's funny you say that. I could not see a scenario where I didn't have insurance on my business. And my insurance comes in a couple of forms. I have, a couple policies. So the first policy I have, my business is my office.
Right.
And so my business insurance covers my building, and it covers my premises, and it covers everything that happens in my business.
Excellent. So you have something like an umbrella policy.
I have it's a general umbrella policy. Yeah.
Man, that's absolutely
well, it's not
great.
an umbrella because the umbrella will cover. It brings all of your other policies inside,
right?
And then it actually, figures out a way to cap or your coverage. So I have them segmented out.
Okay.
So I have a policy that that covers my business and my practice and my building.
Okay.
It's all together though.
Okay.
And then I have a policy that covers my legal profession. So if I go out there and I commit malpractice,
I got you.
I have malpractice insurance.
That's right. Okay.
And then of course I have my own personal insurance.
All right. Are you a notary?
I am.
So you got notary
and
insurance as well. You're a notary. So you're insured down.
Man, I'm insured and then some.
So you're in good hands.
I'm not in good hands.
I'm not talking about the people who say they're in good hands.
Yeah.
But if you are insured, then you are in good hands.
Right.
Because look, it requires that you think past today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what insurance does. I mean, you may go through an entire year and never have a claim.
Right.
So rather than thinking that the money was lost, just be grateful that you didn't have a claim.
Right.
And also be grateful that if you had a claim, you would not have suffered a complete loss.
Well, and the problem is, again, we talk about this before. Starting a business is a plan.
Yes.
And so you have to start, what is your plan for your business? Now, my practice is a practice of law. And like yours is the practice of law, but
That's right.
our businesses are set up totally different.
That's right.
I think you're a PC.
I am a PC.
Yeah. I'm a sole proprietor.
I noticed that.
Yeah. So again, and you can only be a PC if you're a professional.
That's
so
right.
It's a professional corporation. So as a professional corporation, what Jerome is doing is making sure that anything that the corporation does, he may or may not be liable for.
That's right.
Now, I'm doing the same thing, because my business is covered because I operate as the law office of Darrell O'Neill, but I am the law office of Darrell O'Neill.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I have other lawyers, or I only have one lawyer working for me now, that I also have to make sure that if they do something wrong, I'm covered.
Okay, very good.
So the law office of Darrell O'Neill has to cover everybody in that building for mistakes. Hence, my liability, my legal malpractice insurance.
Okay.
And my business insurance covers the building, the business, somebody slip and fall in my floor,
Okay.
or somebody, has an accident on my ramp, or my building gets torn down or whatever.
Right.
It covers that type of stuff.
Okay.
But so we start off, Jerome. Let's ask the question is, why did you do a PC? And I'll tell why I did a sole proprietorship.
Well, I did a PC because I was looking at avoiding personal liability. And so I wanted to try to protect my personal assets from my business assets. Mm-hmm. And so that's what any type of corporation is designed to do. Mm-hmm. When you see a CORP behind a name, or you see a LLC, or you see INC, it's indicating that there is another entity that's totally separate from the individual. Mm-hmm. And that's the way that I thought would be best for me to handle my business situation.
And when you're a corporation, there are some caps and restraints that you have to be bound by.
Right.
And those were some of the restraints that I was concerned about, and that's the reason why I became a sole proprietor.
Okay.
So one of the things, the reason why I became a sole proprietorship is, again, that means that I am the law office of Darrell O'Neill.
And you're personally liable for everything that goes
on in their building.
Right.
And I'm personally liable anyway, because the board of professional responsibility says that anyway.
Okay.
So my issue was, when I first opened up my business, I couldn't afford to give myself a salary. I didn't know how much money was going to come in, how much money was going to go out, where was the next, big money coming in.
Right, okay.
And because of that, the sole proprietorship allows me, if I want to take some money out of it, I can. If I want to put some money in, I can. I'm not bound by any salaries or any of that stuff. I can go in tomorrow and take a couple dollars out of the drawer, and it doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't mean anything.
That makes sense there.
Whereas, it's my understanding, you correct me if I'm wrong, if you do what I just did, you pierce the corporate veil, and there's a possibility that anything that happens, you don't have the corporate protection anymore. You're actually personally liable.
That's exactly right there, and that's what they call commingling funds. Mm-hmm. And so you're right. The sole proprietor misses all of these restrictions and curtains. In fact, you're kind of walled in on what you can and cannot do. Hence, we've seen it play out just recently with one of the state senators by not making sure that these funds are segregated from each other.
Well, twice now, because I think Kelsey just got indicted.
For something very simple thing, going all the way back to Congressman Ford, going back to John. All of those things are out there as snares for you if you're not careful. And you must have somebody who understands how to make sure that the business is not commingling funds. Because it could be innocent, but it still occurred And someone could get in trouble for
Exactly.
it, even though
Yeah.
it was innocent.
And again, I mean, and that's, and you have to set those kind of corporations up.
Yes.
Especially if you're going to be a nonprofit, because you're going to have to get your 501c or 50 whatever it is you decide to be.
C3.
Yeah, C, whatever,
I hear people all the time, I want my 501c3. So they're just really throwing around language that they heard, not really understanding. What the requirements are.
Yeah, because those requirements, you can get yourself in a whole lot of problems.
Absolutely.
Because what ends up happening is that money is going to be tax deductible money, and there's no tax consequences.
That's right.
And in fact, you give somebody that number because they gave you something, that person's going to write it off using that number, and it's going to float itself back to that nonprofit corporation.
That's exactly right.
So, and I say this all the time, a nonprofit is not set up to make money, but it can, because, we know the largest nonprofit in the world is the NFL.
Yeah, you told me that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's set up to make money, or the Red Cross, or, American Heart, all those are nonprofits.
So let's back a little bit there, Darrell. So what you really need is when you are having your business plan, you should have at least a lawyer on board, and at some point you need a CPA, a certified public accountant. So that's how you avoid some of these snares and traps that are out there. Even though you don't necessarily have a whole lot of money, but you've got to have enough money to protect yourself.
Right. And again, and that's why, if you're going to set yourself up as a corporation like you did, one of the first things that you want to do is you want to fund that corporation.
That's right.
Because in order for the corporation to pay bills and pay responsibilities, it has to have funds.
That's right.
So you have to fund that corporation. The problem that I had is, number one, I ain't have a pot to piss in or window to throw it out, so I ain't have nothing to fund. Which is where it started. That's where it started. I had a plan. That's what I had.
Exactly.
But my name, I had a little creditability with my name, where I don't know if I had any creditability with the laws of Darrell O'Neal at that time.
I got you.
Now the laws of Darrell O'Neal has credit.
No question about it.
I can do some stuff, and my, I got my banker actually kind of makes my life easy. But it's all about the business, and it's all about my personal. So now I have two tracks. Even though I'm a sole proprietor, sole proprietor as the laws of Darrell O'Neal.
Right.
And then I have a personal Darrell O'Neal that I now have those two on two separate tracks.
Okay. And
I probably can now do some paperwork to change myself into a PC or something of that nature.
But if it's working for you, I mean.
Well, the issue when you are a corporation is your tax consequences.
Right.
And if you're a corporation, unless you turn yourself into what they call an S corp, and what people don't understand. Well, I want to be an S corp, and they don't even know what it is.
That's right.
An S corp, in simple layman's term, comes from Section S of the IRS code.
Okay.
That's all it is.
That's what it is.
It comes from Section S of the IRS code, and what it says is if you're a small business or a family-owned business, then you can treat it like a LLC, and you can basically have one tax liability.
Mm-hmm.
You run it like you run it through your regular tax return. It just allows you to be a smaller, organization, and then funnel it and manage it as one. For instance, you probably do an independent tax return for your business, and then you do your own personal tax.
That's
return.
exactly right.
Well, when you become an S corp, you can actually run that business tax return into your personal tax return.
That may be something I need to take a look at too.
Yeah.
Because I'm paying taxes on the business and I'm paying personal taxes too, and that could be overwhelming at some point.
Yeah. And see, my business gets taxed, and I get the tax.
Right.
But it's covered on my I got it's a business form, a business addendum on my 1040.
Okay.
So it's not like I got it, and then I take whatever money. Because my business is calculated. So what happens is when I'm spending, what I'm doing with all this other stuff, it's formulated. And if there's some excess, it goes on this line. If there's some negative, it goes on this line. And if it's some excess, I got to pay taxes on it. And if it's some negative, I don't.
Right.
So, again, those are some of the nuances. But regardless, I think, Jerome, you hit this on the head. you need to have insurance.
No question about it, Darrell.
You cannot play Russian roulette with your business because inevitably something's going to happen, and if you don't have the insurance, it will set you back monumental.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's the first question.
Okay.
The second question is, if a person car is stolen off a lot of a business, is the business responsible?
That's a very good question, Darrell. And it also goes back to, that question contains several different related type questions. For instance, when you go into a business location, many times they will have a sign that says just that. Not responsible for items or in your vehicle or anything that occurs on the grounds that may or may not hold up, in my opinion.
Right.
It just depends on what the relationship is. Now, is it a bailment?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is it a bailment?
Yeah.
Or did you just leave your vehicle there on your own? Or was I an invitee? Mm-hmm. So if I'm an invitee, you probably will get some coverage that the average person wouldn't have.
Yeah, there's an argument that you could get some coverage.
Yes, because you invited me there,
right.
and the lot is lined off with spaces, because you cannot have a business in many cases there unless you have enough parking spaces. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So they designed that for you. Plus, even the lighting has to have a certain amount. And so, in my mind, that if I'm an invitee and I'm coming and I am truly using the business because you invited me there, I believe I can get some coverage for something that happens on that lot. Yeah. It's called premises liability.
Yeah. So
I may have stretched it too far.
Well, you like to do that.
But that's what but that's what lawyers do.
Yeah. And so
lawyers find a way to try to get a remedy for their clients. I mean, you and I talk about it all the time there. If lawyers can't find a way, then I got to pull out my Colt 45. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's why the law came into being.
Right.
So we could have a place to settle disputes.
Yeah. I like everything that Jerome said. I do. And the only reason why I'm going to caveat this is because I have done and still do some premise liability cases.
I know you do, absolutely.
And they can be very lucrative or they can be very expensive.
Yes.
And the problem with premise liabilities is you would have to establish that the owner had notice. And that's the issue. Does the homeowner have notice that there was a possibility that your car was going to be broken in because other cars have been broken in? Or did the owner know when you slipped on that floor and broke your leg, did that owner know that water had been there for a period of time?
Absolutely.
And chose not to do anything about it?
Absolutely.
And if that's the case, and here's where the owner, I think, gets some protection, is if it's raining outside and you walk into the floor, into the room, and then you slip and fall. I think the owner will get some protection.
Well, I disagree. And this is why I disagree. The forecast has told you it's going to rain. You know that people are coming in the door. They have their umbrella. You don't have the plastic bags to put your umbrella in when you come in. Mm-hmm. You don't have a person designated to keep getting the water up. Do you see? You don't have caution signs out.
Oh, I will.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you would have caution signs out.
Well, but you didn't say that.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, that you would always have.
Okay, so
because caution signs is, and I'm not really sure it's required, but I'll keep going.
It's not required. See, some things are not required, but that's where we get to where you say knew or should have known. Do you see? And that's how the law will probably branch out to give someone protection. In fact, there's a lady. There's a commercial that comes on about Morgan & Morgan, and I'm not trying to give them any plug, but she says, I fell in the store and broke my kneecap. Mm-hmm. and they came and offered me a certain amount of money. Have you seen them too?
I have.
And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Because if you are on double duty, especially at a time like this, you can even have an issue if you don't take the snow, if you don't clear your walkway with snow there.
Within a reasonable time.
Within a reasonable time.
Right. I mean, and that's what all the issue is.
Right.
The issue is notice and reasonableness. You know, I mean.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, that's a good thing about lawyers, man. I mean, you just can always have that counter. And I like your counter because I've used it myself.
Right.
You know, so often, unfortunately, there's so much case law that goes the other way. And that's the issue that you always have to unravel, you know.
And the other thing is there too, and it's unfortunate that the law is not what? The law is not all black letter.
Oh, no.
Let me say it like that.
Oh, no.
The law, it's so much so until you can get a different result depending on where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we don't have foreign shopping.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So you have lawyers are just like people. You have left-leaning lawyers, and you have so-called conservative lawyers. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So a conservative lawyer might say that, hey, no liability. Mm-hmm. But that's why you go to the three wise men.
Hey, when them judges make a decision you don't like, I mean, and I tell people that every day. I mean, I don't get into it. I mean, if a judge, if I make an argument, I'm going to support my argument with law.
Right.
I'm going to support my argument with facts. And again, I don't wear a black robe.
That's right.
So it's not my job to make the decision.
Absolutely.
It is my job.
You are not the trier of fact.
I am not the trier of fact.
That's right.
I'm not the arbiter of law.
That's right.
It is my job to educate that judge on what I believe the status of the law. Now, here's what happens we see all the time, and I don't agree, and I think it's lack of candor. I think it's a lack of candor to the court. I think it's a violation of the rules. And that's when people actually know that the law that they're using, they manipulate it to get their advantage.
Oh.
They twist it, they perversely twist the law to prove a point. And I think that goes a little too far. I think it lacks candor, and I think that becomes where it's questionable. Now, every lawyer will tell you, "Oh no, I'm just figuring it out." You can't perversely twist the law.
Well, I agree that you can't perversely twist the law, but you can. Okay, so and I don't know where it came from there, but there is a rule or something that says that you have a good faith belief that the case that has merit.
It has merit. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So even though the law, in fact, that's how we get changes.
Yeah.
That's how stuff is overruled after so many years.
Yeah.
What was it? The one that really messed up African American people way back when.
Shucks, it was Plessy.
Plessy versus Ferguson.
Yeah, Plessy,
Yeah, and then also Loving, and so Brown versus Boyd.
Well, that turned the tide.
Finally,
yeah.
And it was unanimous.
Right.
And so when you get these 5-4 decisions there, they can go anyway, just depending on another judge.
Right.
Particularly when the notorious RBJ. When Ginsburg passed away, you see how far the court now has gone in the other direction. So even though, and that's why I love Thurgood Marshall so much, as being the first African American on the Supreme Court, he dissented, and many of the things that he dissented about, the court eventually adopted it. At some point, you see, and so that's why the law it's just not black. It depends on the skills of the person who's making the argument, and that's why you want someone who is skilled, someone who can stand up under the pressure because when those questions come
Man,
at you,
they fire them they fire them like rockets at you, boy.
and so it's your response back that will many times sway a judge. That's so Mr. Payne, I never thought about it like that.
You know, it's funny.
Do you see what I'm saying?
That just, it's funny you say that just happened to me.
Is that right?
You know, I mean, I'm telling this judge X.
Yeah.
I've written to the judge X, and she's adamant that I'm in left field.
Right.
And basically, at some point, she had an epiphany. You know what she said? He's right. X does exist.
Now, it takes a real strong judge to admit that maybe, again, like you say, just continuously ruling against, and all of a sudden the epiphany comes. Say, you know what? X is. X was.
I'm saying this, and that contradicts with this.
Yes.
So how can you even have that conflict?
Yes.
And you're using two different laws, and they're conflicting with each other.
Yes.
It can't do that.
They cannot do that.
Yeah, I mean, the law requires harmony.
Yes.
And if you can't have it, it doesn't exist.
That's exactly right.
So now the next question kind of piggybacks off of the last one. What if a person falls? Can the business be sued? We kind of touched that a little bit.
Sure did.
But let me just clean this up. Whether the business is at fault or not, whether you have insurance or not, you can always be sued. Ain't nothing to stop you from being.
Exactly.
Somebody can have the worst case that exists.
Exactly.
You can always be sued.
Exactly.
You may not lose, you may not win, but you can always be sued.
Exactly.
So that question is,
and the way that they ask that question, the answer probably is no.
yeah,
And the reason why is because you didn't give us facts.
right. You didn't give us facts.
We need some fact
Yeah,
specific.
some facts.
We need to know certain things, whether or not there was notice, whether or not you did assume the risk. You jumped over the basket, because you think you play basketball.
Yeah, trying to get your jump on.
Right,
get your
right.
dunk
Or,
on, yeah.
or you wanted to get to the top shelf and pull something off the top shelf. So the answer is probably no for that person.
Right. Your business.
I think that's exactly right.
And I think you can shop that process. You can, which I didn't know, Mr. King sells insurance. I mean, so you can shop that process at any point.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Darrell.
All right, well,